What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another episode of Rhomas Men's Team. Pretty simple. We are a group of guys helping each other make progress towards each other's goals. If you're new to the channel, awesome and welcome. If you want to help support the channel and join our pro team, head over to rhomasteam.com/pro, where you can contribute to us on a donation basis. We also give you access to exclusive content, mastermind groups, etc., etc. So anyway, hope you enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the team. Mr. Ray, what's going on, brother?
Good morning, Wes. I'm good. How are you, bud?
Good, man. Rhomas Men's Team, pretty simple. We help each other make progress on our goals. I am coming to you live from the Hilton Garden, the phenomenal Hilton Garden Inn in Phoenix, Arizona, because my flights just hit a shitstorm yesterday, so I ended up having to spend the night in Phoenix in commute. So if my internet's choppy, I apologize. And then I also have to jet in probably like 25 minutes or so to catch the shuttle. Anyway, I heard this great line.
The rich and famous, huh?
Yeah. And Ray, for some reason, the microphone sounds a little almost like it's a little underwater. Arjuna, what's up, beast?
Hey.
So I heard this great line yesterday. Well, two great lines. One was, if it matters to you, it matters. And I thought that was really interesting. And I reflected on my own matters. It's like, yeah, that is an important thing to note. Like, how many times do we trivialize something that we want just because of how it might sound to other people? It's like, hey, well, if it matters to me, it matters. Similarly, how many times do we trivialize, I don't know why I have trouble saying that word, what somebody else says matters to them, but it doesn't matter to us, so we downplay it. Ray, let me throw it over to you. What comes up to you for you when I say that?
Well, I'm gonna volley back to you, Wes. What is some of the head trash that goes on, like in this scenario where, oh, it matters to me, but it's not really important? I suppose that's where you minimize, right? That's where you're like what would be some of the scripting that goes on in your head? If
you could argue that, like, once you reach above a certain level of goal in whatever area, once you reach making $100,000, nothing above there technically matters, or 500 or a million or whatever. In my opinion,
problems, right? First world problems. Oh, these are champagne problems. These are first world problems, right? That's some of the things we tell ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Or levels of fitness. So right now we're in the fitness competition. With that Kaizen, did a great job of kicking off, and just the amount of times you could run into that trap of telling somebody your goals, and they'll say, well, what's it matter, right? You're not 400 pounds. You don't need to lose any weight, like that sort of thing. So there's these constant little forks in the road that are implying this particular sentence. Why does it matter? Well, it matters because I said it matters. And then also the scripting to yourself. It's like, hey, remember that you're the one who set this goal. You're not in a proper mind frame right now to maybe remember why or be as committed to it. But this matters because you made it matter by what you said and what you committed to.
Well, what comes up for me, Wes, is your goals analysis, right? Like when you try to evaluate whether a goal is worthy or relevant, what is your thought process? It's like, how long has it been a goal for me, right? What do you want to give me a reminder of that? Because I think that would be a good format for if it matters to me. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question, Ray. So one of the filters that I use is past, present, future, right? Like, has this mattered to me in the past, and if so, for how long? Does this matter to me now? And then will this matter to me in the future? And then I put another layer over it of same question, but for my stakeholders, right? if I would have been committed to this in the past, would it have benefited my core stakeholders, my inner circle, right? How would it benefit them today? Would it benefit them in the future? And just those two filters help me honestly reject more opportunities than select more opportunities, which I think is helpful.
Yeah, so I think that would be a useful filter for the if it matters to me, it matters, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, yeah, did it matter in the past? Does it matter in the present? Is it likely to matter in the future? And if that's the case, then you can settle the debate as to whether you're just being impulsive or is this something you should own.
Yeah. I also probably think another good filter on there is like, it doesn't matter to your biology. It's funny how sometimes I'll talk to guys, and I've been hearing it myself as well. And it's like, let's say you're trying to pick up girls or you're trying to get a date or something like that. How many times do we have to get rejected before like, God, it doesn't really, what's the big deal? It's like, well, it's a big deal to biology, so therefore it's a big deal, or same thing with fitness, right? It's like, how many times do we let others tell us like, oh, you don't have to go to the gym. You went to the gym yesterday. It's like, well, because it matters to my biology, right? That's why. So, Ray, what comes up for you, man?
Well, I don't know, dude. Like again, like it matters to my biology. What it comes up for me is like, yeah, perhaps Wes, but then there's also I think what you talked about the limbic system, right? Um, like the right. I'm thinking of like fear, right? Fear and stress have the ability to create biological results, right? Biological outcomes, biological um, effects, right? And so, yeah, and so if I feel like, so in terms of picking up a girl, uh, there might be some, now it's been a long time since I've done that, but I mean, it's been a couple of days, right? But the butterflies you get in your stomach, right, is a
Yeah.
fear projection. And I think that's something you have to ignore, right? Like that is like that's the caveman. The cave like that's inherited from when the cavemen tried to pick up girls and they got butterflies in the stomach, right? We don't need that anymore. And in that case, it was literally picking up girls, right? It was more of a kidnapping scenario, right? So you might pine for the good old days, but that is yeah, I think yeah. So like biology can be misleading too.
Well, let me ask you this. Is there anything on the table right now in your life or either of your lives that matter to you and either you or the people around you are making it insignificant?
There is like I mean, what comes up for me is the separation and divorce kind of journey I'm going through right now, and how you know keeping it civil or being really scrappy. Different people have different kind of suggestions on which is more appropriate, right? And so that is uh, yeah, that is something that comes up for me, and like what I have to wrestle with is like, am I trying to keep it classy just because I think that's what lines up with my values, or is it kind of like a more harmful um, conflict avoidance pattern,
Mm.
right? So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but that's something that is really um, kind of filling my boots with molasses and really making me creating a lot of drag as I
Yeah, I think
navigate
the
the world.
distinction, I think the distinction between like, so I'm going to imagine it's like this distinction between like fear and honor, something like that.
Yeah,
Like there's some sort of fine line between those two.
yeah, yeah. And then something else that comes up is that like, I wish I just had a time machine and I could just know the outcome and then just kind of like steer myself in a straight line there. But of course, we don't have that luxury, do we? Like part, I guess, unfortunately, part of self growth is like navigating to that destination in a kind of messy, meandering way.
Yeah. I also wonder for divorce, not to get too into the weeds in divorce, but this often plays a role in conflict and negotiation of like, how can one or the people at the table at least agree on a timeline, of, hey, we're going to have this solved by Saturday at noon, sort of a situation. Or we're going to have this solved because I actually walked a client through this not too long ago and with a divorce, but I think you can use it in a lot of other domains. And it sounds so obvious when we're talking about it, but dude, I could tell you the amount of times where, my clients or myself have been involved in situations where we lost sight of, right, an act like a pragmatic deadline, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
just because it's so easy to get distracted by whatever breadcrumb of the moment and then go down this freaking rabbit hole for a month. So I'd be curious if there needs to be some leadership there, especially because I feel like a divorce oftentimes is led by attorneys and not the real decision makers. And
Yeah.
then when that happens, you have the exact opposite incentive of the decision makers.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Right. Right.
I was gonna say, piggybacking off of that, like I believe that importance and what matters is really relative to each person's experience. So, like what you were saying about like lawyers, like divorces really matter to them, but they matter in this very specific way. Whereas, like the level of importance that I perceive your divorce, Ray, can only be of such a capacity. Like, I love you and I'm here for you and I care about you, but I've never been in a divorce. So the energy and the thought and the way I can put into like the idea of divorce, it can only matter so much to me because I've never been through it. Whereas if other people have been through it, then it really matters to them. And so, like, I think that it's like nothing matters. I think personally, I think I'm almost on this nihilistic level. Like, I clear the board by being like, well, nothing matters, and now I'm free to pursue my things without pressure, but not without like it. That doesn't make me apathetic. Does that make sense? Like, it's not like, oh, nothing matters, so I shouldn't do anything. It's more like, oh, nothing matters, so now I can actually do these things freely. Does that does that make sense?
Yeah.
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 There's an
Another like
element. Oh, please go, bud.
okay. Yeah. Like another interpretation of that is the 12-step mantra of one day at a time. Right. Because the divorce is not happening. I'm not solving the divorce today. I'm not solving climate change today. I'm not right. And so, or any other big things that can like freeze me like a deer in the headlights, right? If I get kind of snowed with all the details, right? So one day at a time is not exclusively a um, like it's not nihilistic either, right? It's not. I mean, it's not. It's. I don't think it's designed to be nihilistic. And in the way you were saying, nothing matters. Um, uh, a nihilistic alternative to that would be this too shall pass, or this isn't fatal, or right, like or like you're stronger than this, you'll get through it, right?
Well, I also wonder if Arjuna, what you're saying, this is the way that I'm interpreting it, is I think it's the difference between essentialism and existentialism. I think essentialism is where one believes that everything already has an intrinsic meaning, it has an essence to it. Versus existentialism, I believe, means, like you're saying, nothing has inherent meaning. You're the one who creates the meaning for it. This is why we could have the same exact circumstance happen to literally both of us, and we could have a completely different interpretation of it. Is that am I
Yeah,
picking up
yeah,
on
yeah.
that?
I'd say it's more, yeah. And I think with that, it's very easy to set ourselves up for failure if we're putting expectations in the wrong basket of thinking that other people, depending on who they are and what part they play in our lives, are going to receive what's important to us in the way that we receive it.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. Yeah, and I land in that camp as well. I think the tricky part, if you land in the existential camp, which is you're creating the meanings, I think there's two tricky parts. The first tricky part is, well, you actually have to do the work to create the best meaning possible, as opposed to just rolling out of bed and be like, yeah, well, that's because I chose that. It's like, yeah, you didn't really choose it. It was chosen for you by default. The second thing is when it gets hard, you got to be really careful not to change the target. Really easy. It's a lot easier for somebody who's creating their own meaning to change the meaning than it is for Roman Catholics to change the meaning of Christmas. You know, um, so I think that's the challenge, man. Like when you give meaning to things, like are you going through a formal process of giving it meaning? Are you telling everyone else around you through your actions and your words that those things have meaning for you as well?
Hey dudes, sorry for the interruption here. Just wanted to let you know if you want to join our pro team, go to romasteam.com/pro. You can help support the channel. You will also get access to exclusive content, masterminds, one-on-one sessions, etc. All right, back to the episode.
So that's what comes up for me.
Totally agree with that. Yeah, I mean that what it makes me think of is like this whole Apple locking me out of my thing for 2 weeks. This isn't the first like really intense parkour setback that has been created since this thing that I'm like, okay, this matters to me. And then the universe shows up and throws these insane obstacles. And I've been through these pitfalls where I'm fucking crying. I'm like, dude, I can't move forward. But even in this situation, it's like, well, this matters to me so much. I'm not going to just okay, so I can't edit and I can't share. That's disappointing to my ego. I'm saying all this stuff to the men's group. I'm saying all this stuff. I'm doing these goals and I literally can't share them with people. But that's not going to prevent me. Like, I still have tons of memory chips and what have you that I can still record. I can still continue the momentum of what matters to me rather than being like, oh, okay, well, now I just have to wait for this thing. Like, it's so important that it's not going to keep me from building momentum.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Steve Jobs story where I guess Steve Wozniak was about to quit Apple, like in its early days, in its garage days, and was going to go work for HP. And Steve Wozniak told Jobs that. And apparently, I think, if memory serves me correct, Steve Jobs went over to like Wozniak's dad's house, just like bawling, crying, like, you can't do this, you can't. And from my understanding, Wozniak's dad was like, dude, like, what's the big deal? But in Steve's mind, it's like, motherfucker, Apple is the big deal. You just don't know Apple yet. That's the issue. So, almost having a battle cry for us men of like, one of the things I like most about guys is that we can sit around the campfire and bust each other's balls. I do think that can come at the expense sometimes of getting eternally stagnant and caught at that watering hole or at that fire camp, and you don't go out and hunt. Because now in most of our lives, you don't necessarily have to. And we don't have to go out and hunt. You don't have to make strong meanings for things. Do you know what I mean? You're just the guy that goes to the bar every single night and who can make people laugh, but then you go home to emptiness, and that's not a criticism. That is a warning, like a cautionary tale, because I know a lot of guys like that. And I think we're all at risk of that if we don't watch our actions. Ray, what are your thoughts, brother?
I wrote down like, what am I gonna hunt today? That's like a good set an intention. It's a good way to set an intention. Something I've been thinking about a lot um, lately is living with intention, right? Just kind of meditating on that word, right? Uh, you know, and so what am I gonna hunt? Because I mean, I did hunt a sale after our call um, on Friday, and the first outreach I did like resulted in a really good inserting someone into the sales funnel. Like we're not at a sale yet, but like we're halfway there, so I feel really good about that.
The
And
first call.
the first, yeah. After all
How
my
much of a
like,
slap in the face is that?
I know. I mean, after all my grousing and groaning and griping, uh, it's a very nice slap in the face answer. That's your
Yep.
answer there. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So what am I gonna hunt today? And yeah, and so like I fail, you know. I'm gonna hunt money, and I'm not really obsessed with money or like in a negative way. I just don't have any of it in a negative way. And so and
Got a couple seconds.
what up? What up, Kaizen? What up, Ninja? What are you hunting today? And don't say like turds jammed sideways in pipes.
So this is a Christian college putting in new boilers.
Oh,
Right
heck
on,
yeah.
dude. Doing
Yeah,
God's
so
work.
Kaizen would love to get your take on this because I know you said you only have a few seconds. So what's going on, brother?
Not much popped in. I got to unload this supply truck here real quick, but love what you guys are saying. Attacking it, you
What?
can't really like rest on your laurels. And I can kind of see where a lot of people can get complacent in that. Just keep moving, keep making progress. Do one little baby step at a time. Sometimes you'll feel like you're at a plateau, but just keep going with it. And then after a while, if you're tracking your progress and keeping track of everything, you're going to see growth. And a lot of these plateaus feels like you're not getting anywhere. Like especially like in sales,
Yeah,
like what Ray's talking about. I've been in that before, where you'll go a little bit without hitting anything, and then all of a sudden, the floodgates will open up as long as you just keep digging.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
habits, right? Make a small step. That's like just practicing your habits. That's what comes to me.
yeah, and I think in addition to this, it actually, if anybody is listening to this saying, "Oh, well, hey, I have been sitting back and not playing the game to the fullest degree," and maybe even busting other people's balls who are playing the game, right? Like if you're playing the game of a certain version of a troll right now, I get it. Like I understand it because that's easier. But also to have some empathy for that position, the game is a lot harder now. Like when you had to hunt to eat or you would die the next day or within 3 days, that game to a certain from a certain vantage point is easier because the feedback loop is super tight. Well, now we're dealing with very long feedback loops. So if you're not creating meanings for things that are important for you, then how the fuck are you going to act? This is often why when guys have children, they will get their shit together because it's like, oh, that baby relies on me almost on a minute by minute basis. So I don't have the pleasure of like, manipulating these meanings on a daily basis to suit my short-term emotions. Ray,
Yeah,
what comes up for you, Beast?
having a baby, I guess, is the ultimate rock bottom, right? Because it just you can't con your way out of it, and it's like you gotta start getting your shit together from there. That's what comes up for me, and yeah, I like that. I like what Kaizen said. Just like make a small step. Just make a. I think he said make a small big step, which, and I might have heard him wrong, but it just means like all big steps are just comprised of. It's just when you look in the rearview mirror and you see all the small steps you've taken.
Well, I wonder if it's a take a small step in a big direction, right? Like that sort of mindset.
Yes. Yeah, this is me and my brother were actually talking about this the other day in relation to how people will, in a relationship, they'll do things that leads to cheating. And it's like the first step that leads to it. If you're already doing that, it's
Yep.
like you're already cheating kind of thing. But what that analogy in this case is like in sales or whatever goal or anything that you're trying to get achieved, whatever that first thing that it takes to get the ball moving in that direction, like sometimes we have to use a big ass bar to lift stuff to create leverage to get stuff moving when you're moving some huge pipes or whatever it is. So whatever it is in your world or whatever phrases or terminology or whatever your kind of work is, whatever that momentum start is. Maybe that's making a call. Maybe that's prospecting who your whatever clients could be. I mean, whatever it is, just getting that first, and then not being like, oh, it didn't work this time. Oh, I'm not at my goal after trying for 3 seconds. Like put in the work, that dedicated time that Wes talks about. Cut off your distractions, turn your phone off, and just work. Like
Yeah.
that, it's crazy. Just doing something. It sounds super simple, but just doing that, it's like all of a sudden, all this bullshit that I've been worried about, it just kind of like fades away, and you're like, oh, that didn't matter. So I was worried about nothing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Dude, it's
I
so
think
funny you said that. Yep, Arjuna, please. And then my screen's gonna blank. Ray and Arjuna, you and Kaizen, you guys take it over because I need to start packing up. But please, Arjuna, go ahead, brother.
I was going to say, I think there's also something to be said, like the phrase, you are who you associate with. Like a lot of my coworkers, they're not even really friends, but they spend a lot of time after work drinking and commiserating with, their life suffering and stuff like that. And I feel like that's a big pitfall that can be easy to fall into as well. Like, it's like that's why stuff like this is so important, like parkour groups, like stuff where people are really actively trying to grow and with intention and like courageous self-awareness. It's so easy, there's so many different groups everywhere to just be able to justify your apathy. So I think it's also very important to hold yourself accountable by like who you hang out with, otherwise you just waste your whole life.
Yeah, and so Kaizen, you said you're the average of the five people you hang out with, and that Wes is the most. And Wes's version of that is you are the average of the five teams you're on, right? And Arjuna, like I agree, man. Like there's an accountability that occurs in the best, um, you know, when it works best. There's an accountability um, mechanism in these teams or these people you're hanging out with, right? Like, uh, so yesterday, like I went to church, which was awesome because I'm like an usher there. And then I went to an AA meeting, and it was at the AA meeting, and the AA meeting wasn't just uh, talking about sobriety, but like I had a conversation where someone called me on my bullshit and said like, yeah, you're sober, but are you like a ticking time bomb, or are you working the program, right? And so there was like an account rather than just hearing the message, which like now the people you hang out with, like at the base level, you're hearing the message, they're carrying the message to you, right? Which is whatever a good influence on you or whatever, ideally, right? But then the second level is when there's an accountability where they challenge you to set a goal and call you on your bullshit if you don't reach it.
Yeah, and you have to be in a group of people strong enough for someone to actually have the to be able to see that and have the conviction to challenge you. Like if someone has none of that in their life, then they probably won't even have the capacity to point it out, let alone follow up with like challenging you with it. And so it can be very convenient to, hang out with people who are, lesser than you or whatever. So you don't have to hear those messages and look at those mirrors.
Yeah, nobody likes to be called on their bullshit. If you're spouting bullshit and then somebody's like, hey, that's not actually true. It's very painful, especially if you built your reality around it and they're actively destroying it, and then you have to kind of reassess what you feel is reality. It's not always like, oh yeah, you're right. That was that was very helpful. Thank you. A lot of the
Certainly
times,
know it.
if if you do it for other people, you have to think you're probably doing it yourself. You'll fight. Like, no, that's not. What the fuck are you talking about? You're crazy. And then you'll think about it later, and you're like, no, no, that's actually right. That's I was wrong, and I need to tell them I was
Right.
wrong and accept the
Like the
criticism
shell,
and then
right?
grow
Like
with it.
like we can create a shell of like lies or delusion or of like kind of like the stories we tell that protect us, right? And like the accountability factor is can pierce that shell, and they can tell you to stop acting the fool. Kaizen, what do you have in your van there? Like there's a picture, there's that a flag or something behind you? What how,
I, I took out the middle doorway so that I can get into the bed from the front.
Nice.
Yeah, this is more of a my pickup artist stuff coming back more than anything. But kind of to that, just I think too, if once you start getting into the habit of allowing people to kind of call your bullshit, it forces you, I guess, to be more truthful and to be coming from a place of truth So you're not lying to yourself, you're not lying to other people. And the more that you do that, it will feel like repulsive and you'll feel like wrong if you lie or you do something that's not true to your core. And the more that you act like in alignment to who your core being is, and you're not lying to yourself, you're acting your true. Like chicks will say that all the time, and it sounds like very masturbatory. I need to speak, I need to live my truth. But whatever like actual truth is, like if you're fat as fuck, you know that. You're not gonna lie to yourself. I'm not actually like, okay, take your shirt off then walk around your house. Do you feel okay? Do you not feel okay? I'm gonna work on it if I'm not feeling cool about it. I'm actively working on it. Most people, I don't know. It's easy for us to cover up. It's easy for us to like lie and then just build momentum of lying, and then all of a sudden you're not who you were. You don't recognize yourself because you've made up all this crap going on. Versus if you're living your truth, you're living in alignment with what you want to do. All of a sudden you can start stacking up wins. You feel better about yourself, and then if somebody does criticize you, if you're in a place of truth, you can actually accept it. And if it's not a place of truth, you can be like, no, that's bullshit. Like I kind of know. I know what I'm doing with my life. I'm doing my things in the direction I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm aware of that. But in order to be in that position, you kind of have to force yourself to be living in the truth or whatever.
I totally agree with that. I was actually, I mean, of all, this isn't the healthiest place, but I was getting into it with some YouTube commenters on some UFC video or whatever. I was talking with someone about like, I'm a champion in my own right because I do parkour, and all these UFC fans just jumped on me like, oh, you're king of the dorks, huh? Climbing trees and this and that. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, I know I'm a champion. I don't like, it's fascinating that these people are all just projecting so much fear at me, but I don't have to defend myself in any way. If anything, parkour is more dangerous because there's no ref that's going to keep me from dying. So it's arguably like more courageous, but I don't have to like everyone just, yeah, you fucking loser. I'm just like, oh, well, I know my truth. I know my relationship with fear and my confidence and my self conviction. Like, none of this goes right through me. If anything, it's almost like a little kid calling me a booger head or something, you know?
Yeah,
You also can't take yourself too seriously. Like if I tell people I'm a plumber, I'll say that I play with poop. Like whatever you think is cool, a lot of the times in a few years or weeks or months, you'll look back at it later and be like, oh, I wish I didn't do that. You can't really like take it super serious. If somebody makes a joke, you kind of be like, okay, it hurt, but it was funny.
It's always funny. How about you, Alex? What you have a take on any of this?
I missed the first half of this, so I'm just trying to get back in. It looks like you guys are kind of talking about cutting through the bullshit. I've definitely been struggling with that lately. I had let myself get out of my habits of going to the gym and to running up the mountain and whatnot. And then I had my graduation this weekend, and I planned it and paid for all of it, and so I allowed that to kind of stop the progress I had made going up, because I've got like nice little mountains behind me with trails that I like to go running up or jog up once a day or every other day. And I definitely fell into that trap of using all this as an excuse to not do what I set out to do. So that's kind of where I'm at in regards to that.
what part of the country are you in, man?
I'm in Arkansas.
Right on. Right on. And so what we started the conversation today with was a quote that Wes heard that, like, if it matters to you, it matters, period. Right. And then and so maybe Kaizen just, I mean, he said like the female version of that is like, that's my truth. Or, how girls have that on a mug, or they say that to shut down a fight or whatever, right? And so then the question was like, well, how do you like um so I'll put it to you, Arjuna, just to act it out, right? Um, why do you keep talking about parkour? Like parkour doesn't matter, right?
Right.
And then you would say like, if it matters to me, it matters.
Yeah, but even then, it doesn't matter behind it all. Like, and that's why
Right.
it's so great. That's why I don't have to take it serious. That's why I don't have to defend it or like I can talk about it with vigor and passion. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm just out playing, and there's a freedom to that. So it's like I don't have to, I don't have to convince anyone it's important because at the end of the day, I know it's not. I know it makes me feel good. I know that it makes me feel fulfilled. Like, yeah, I was just listening to one of the old podcasts that got posted, and that's what Matt was saying about specifically about thinking about there being a higher intelligence, something that's bigger. It's like, okay, that might not be real. You might think it's total bullshit, but if it works for me on such a level where it fulfills me, then it doesn't really matter if it doesn't matter because like the outcome is what matters.
Hmm. Hmm. So, Alex, did you ever encounter that with your wife, girlfriend, parents, or anyone where there is a kind of dissonance between what matters to you and what matters to them?
Oh, certainly. I had my whole family down here. We're all from Washington State, and it took me about 6 years to convince them to come to Arkansas because they were all like, "Oh, Arkansas, that's just rednecks and mud," you know. And I was telling them like, "It's fucking gorgeous out here. The people are nice. Property's cheap. You know, there's a lot of opportunity down here." And I finally got them out here, and I love all the mountain biking trails, love all the hiking trails, and it's just like nobody will do that. We all like my family just grew up where activities were always based around food and trying to like keep my life where I'm not, focusing everything about food and trying to revolve more around like actual activities that I enjoy. It's really hard when your whole family and even some of your friend structure isn't in that mindset as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
often. Oh, go ahead, Ray. So oftentimes when stuff like that happens, I wonder how much force I'm trying to get someone else to perceive what's important. Like sometimes, and I'm not saying drop your close friends and your family, but like sometimes I'm one like I've spent a lot of energy trying to convince the people who have been closest to me in my history what's important, and it just continues to fall on deaf ears. And it's not that I'm not gonna excommunicate them from my life, but when those things continue to happen more and more and more and more and more and more, then that's when I have to kind of check my ego and be like, okay, well, the universe is showing me that maybe I'm not supposed to be putting so much energy and holding so much expectation into these people receiving what's important to me.
Yeah, and like something that comes to mind for me, Arjuna, is in 12 Step Recovery, where they don't encourage us to like beg people to join the sober tribe, but just to show them through attraction. Like not attraction, not advertising or something is the way they see it. Like so, in other words, Alex, like I think you've shown them through your behavior over the last 6 years. Now it took 6 years, and that's how long it takes sometimes. But you showed them through your actions over 6 years that there's something good happening in Arkansas, and in a way that like all the urging and like begging or right like passionate kind of arguments would not do. Kaizen, what do you think of that persuasion through like attraction instead of advertising?
The whole terminology that gets into is the whole attract versus chase. So it's a lot more powerful to kind of sit back and attract people than if you chase, because a lot of times that's actually repelling people. It's having the opposite effect. Um, when it comes to something like that, though, I think a lot of us can kind of relate, especially if your family isn't the healthiest. It just requires that much more self discipline. If you're around family people, if you're around family members and they're not eating healthy and you're trying to eat healthy, sometimes you have to eat something else. It's one of those things, and if it actually matters, you'll do it. And if your family is like gonna be weird about it, you got to be like, hey, I'm doing this because I love you guys. I'm trying to take care of myself and make myself healthy, so where you're old, I'm still in good enough condition to take care of you. If you want to be mad about that, that's on you. But I've decided I'm going to live a healthy lifestyle. If you're not cool with it, You do your thing. I'm gonna do my thing. If you see what I'm doing and you want to be a part of it, you ask questions. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. I'm not gonna force it down your throat and be like, you have to eat healthy or you're not my friend. You're not my friend anymore because you won't eat a salad.
You're not my
Or you can
family
just be like,
people.
yeah, just be yourself. And then if you're yourself to the point where it looks like other people want to do that too, they're going to ask you questions and they'll want to join in it. But you have to do your own thing first and not let outside influence fuck it up.
Yeah, and I think the power of the team comes in there, right? Where you can, uh, and I agree that like family people are not going to be universally supportive of everything you do. That's not like that. We're asking too much of our families if we think they're going to be that good. Like they're only good. They only exist like that on TV, and really not even TV anymore. Families on TV are like they are realistically complex and flawed now. I'm thinking more like the Cosby Show, you know, um,
Well,
right? And
specifically families too, because like in family, like you've the history of your entire ego was created through family. So it's like they've played such a big part in creating who you are. So when you branch out and then you start really becoming who you are, not just this pieced up version of what your family was, then it doesn't you can be admired by strangers through that growth, but that growth may be kind of looked at in disdain through your family because they're like, oh no, well, I know you to be this way. And then the idea of being like, well, I'm actually this way, and this is what I needed to discover and who I am in my individuality. And in those times, then it's very cut or dry, especially if you're speaking your truth and you're like living it. It's very they'll show you very clearly whether they're going to be capable of accepting like the real you or if they're completely stuck in this version of like no you're just my little brother and you're all or like my mom. I don't know that she'll ever not look at me as like her son, which is kind of a bummer for her because it's just robbing her of an opportunity to see me for who I am these days.
yeah, dude. Alex, another thing that comes to mind is like you traveling out there, and like Arjuna said, like um, forging your own identity is like it's just like it's a very literal hero's quest, right? Where you're going on this journey, and it's like it's to a place that maybe like is not accepted by your tribe back home, or is like somewhere your tribe back home has never traveled to. I'm thinking of Moana going out past the reef. You're basically Moana.
I haven't.
Perfect. I do feel like my family is like really supportive of what I've been doing and of me being healthier and stuff like that. I think I just struggle with when they're around. It's really easy. Like it's fun to just sit down and drink beer and shoot the shit for a while. Like it's a good time. But I think that I can do that and also make time to do the exercise. It's just that I had struggled with that balance and, really forcing myself to do the work.
Hell yeah, and like Kaizen said, it does take twice as much discipline. Like what I can relate to is when I'm here with my daughter and there's like a drawer full of like goldfish, pretzels, chips, you know, flaming
Mm-hmm.
hot Cheetos, all of it, and it's yeah, it takes twice as much discipline. I almost have to like I have to fill up on lentils before I even come in the door or something, right?
Yeah. And I was lucky in that my great grandmother actually went on a hike with me, and some of my cousins went on a hike with me. So it wasn't like no exercise at all. It just really derailed the effort that I had been putting in before. And that's my own
Um,
fault.
right on. And so you said it's graduation time. You had family down there, and so that's kind of derailing some of your habits, your like healthy habits. And so,
Yeah.
tell me, what are you like? So, another question that came up earlier in the pod is like, uh, Wes said use the word hunt, and I thought to myself, what am I going to hunt today? So, like, um, so what comes up for you? Like when like if those kind of good habits are something you're pursuing, like what kind of pledge can you make for today or the coming week that you can get back on
I
your
mean,
program?
the biggest thing for me is at least just going and doing at least one physical activity a day. If I could just get that in and create that habit and then build from there, I've had a lot of success in the past. The problem is if something gets interrupted and you get lazy and then that habit is broken. I mean, it's a cycle that I've seen a lot of people go through and I struggle with myself.
What
Alex,
time do
Yeah.
you wake up?
7
What
are
time do you go to
are
bed?
around midnight.
Well, that right there is probably not a good sign right there if you're sleeping 7 hours going to bed at midnight. I would say if you wake up
I take a
maybe like
nap
a little
usually in the
bit
middle of the
earlier,
day.
yeah. For your sleep cycle and like releasing cortisol, because you'll get a big buildup of cortisol if you're not resting enough. I've learned the hard way because it's fucked up my shit before, but
Mhm.
maybe try and get a little bit better sleep as far as I go to bed earlier and then wake up earlier, knock it out first thing so you're not getting distractions. That's why you get. I'm not saying be Mark Wahlberg and wake up at 3 in the morning, but there's probably a lot less distractions at that time.
are
Yeah,
you
yeah,
part of
certainly.
the Discord, Alex? Are you
Yeah, yeah, I've been for a while now.
so are you
Fat Man on there, Fat Man 7-Eleven and something.
okay? Okay. Well, are you I mean, are you should be part of the fitness goals. That's I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, there was challenges that I've been procrastinating on 2 years. I got half of them done just as a result of like holding myself accountable to the group. I mean, if
Yeah,
that could helps.
yeah, certainly.
Yeah, Kaizen, why don't you remind us like how you are approaching uh, the fitness challenge? Personally, I'm like weighing myself every day. I'm trying to get from 175 down to 170, and um, yeah, I think last time I checked, I was at 172.5. So Kaizen, how are you? Like, what is your fitness goal, and how are you measuring it?
I think the scorecard is like the foundation to go off of that. Make sure like that is working itself. Just making sure you're getting the greens, you're getting the amount of exercise and the water. Like that is key,
And
and
the
then
sleep,
going from there,
right?
the sleep. Um, me, I think the taking pictures of the food that you eat, even before I'm eating something, it puts that in my mind now, and it makes me it like opened up as woo woo as you want to get, opened up my awareness now to where I'm thinking about what I'm eating before I'm just putting whatever my food based on impulse. I'm actually okay. Hold on. I'm making a cognitive decision of what I'm going to eat. I'm going to eat a salad. I'm not going to eat a cheeseburger. I'm not going to eat whatever unhealthy thing. Um, I'm just doing that. I think is making a huge difference just in the way that I feel, and then um, water and sleep makes the exercises that much more intense. And the biggest thing that I think I'm kind of tying it all together with is I quit as if I didn't give much of a fuck to begin with. I give even less of a fuck, and I'm trying to have more fun and just make anything that I'm doing as much fun as I can because why not? I'm gonna die at some point, so do I want to just be miserable and going through the motions and be like, oh, I have to do this, or I can be like, oh, I get to do this, and just that little switch of what you're saying in your head to yourself, I have to do this, to I get to do this, because there's been times when like just being able to go outside and do certain things, you're like, oh, I wish I could just go outside. Well, I'm outside. I have a job that I get to do. There's people that don't have a job. There's people that don't get to do certain things. So change that to appreciation, and all of a sudden it makes things a lot easier. So if I'm going to be tying that together to the fitness, I get to work out. I don't have to. I get to. You know how fucking awesome it is that I'm allowed to do this? I have the resources to work out in a gym to where I can exercise. Like, that's pretty fucking cool. And if you set your life up that way to where you have that kind of stuff, then even better.
Yeah,
And I
man,
think
that's great. Go ahead, Arjuna.
I was gonna say with that, with the attitude of appreciation, then the returns are exponential too. Like it just I've said it before on here, but like I believe the universe to be benevolent. So it's like the more you get out of your own way, the more it's just gonna keep giving you more and more, so long as you let your own walls down.
Yeah, dude, and that like that attitude of gratitude exactly. Like I sell art for a living, and so like I like it's not like damn when is the next sale going to occur, but it's like I get to share my passion with others, right? And that is because that's really what I'm doing. Like when I'm not begging people to buy stuff, I'm kind of like the format is, hey, this is super cool, and I thought you would like it. And so if I just
Yeah, the
actually try to believe that for
transfer
a
of
second,
emotions.
yeah, if I just like get out of the way and actually believe that for a minute, that is yeah, that's great. And then Alex, what do you think of that, man? Like rather than trying to, yeah, I think that is another way to look at if you have new habits that your family doesn't really share. It's like uh yeah, you have a passion and you get to share that with them. And so if they're all like chowing on ribs, and you can come back from a crazy mountain biking trip, a ride, and you're like in your spandex and you're like sweating all over everyone, and you're like, "Hey guys, that was amazing!" Like I hopped over a log or something. I'm picturing you just like uh, sharing your passion. And again, your family, like to quote Arjuna, your family might call you king of the dorks or whatever. But Arjuna, what was your response when you were called king of the dorks?
Oh, like to myself or actually on the.
Oh, with in the comment section, you said like
Oh yeah, just I'm a champion in my own right. Yeah, and I went as far as I mean, but again, you can't convince miserable people to be unmiserable. But it's nice to be challenged too because then it makes you think of new things. And yeah, that was my response was like, yeah, a ref's not going to keep gravity from breaking my legs or killing me. So
yeah,
definitely, what I do is more dangerous than UFC.
yeah, just so Alex, just shout, "I'm a champion, mom," and like wipe the tears, wipe the tears and boogers away, and like as you run to your room and slam the door.
Yeah, I'm totally a big proponent of changing your mentality on things, and that's how I plan to get back into stuff. I'm a big proponent of being comfortable, being uncomfortable. You know, if you can just embrace the suck and get through it, like that makes things a lot easier for me, especially with technology how it is today. I can throw an audiobook on or a podcast or a playlist to something, and it's not too bad, no matter how challenging the workout is, as long as you're, you know, as long as you can get there.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
showing
talked
up's
to,
half the battle.
yeah, I've talked about this with Kaizen before, with like the kind of the I mean, if I only showed up half as hard as like Kaizen showing up for that hoagie in his hands, man, I mean, there'd be no stopping me. But uh, dang, oh look at that, man, just straight animal protein,
little crispy critters.
right on, dude. Yeah, in terms of like that being comfortable in the uncomfortable, I was trying to practice that yesterday, just like sitting with uncomfortable thoughts, right? And like a kaizen, I think like I've talked about this with you before, and it's like a kind of like I understand that it's a kind of one of the tenets of Buddhism or something, right? Where it's like you're able to sit with uncomfortable thoughts and not be kind of frozen in fear, but just be like, this too shall pass, and like I don't need to, and I don't need to go whack off or go chug a beer or like go put on some mediocre podcast like Matt and Shane's or whatever, and just
That's fired.
but just to sit with like just to be comfortable in the uncomfortable, like you said. Um,
Yeah, don't feel the need to cope. Don't use things to cope that are if you make it that black and white, it's easier to start seeing it. Cope versus thrive. Is this helping me thrive or is this me coping? Is this me like doing something to feel better about the situation, or am I actually making a better situation?
Mm-hmm. And Arjuna, what do you think of like that being comfortable in the uncomfortable, or being able to sit with uncomfortable thoughts or feelings? Like
Well,
what are
yeah.
some of the ways you do that?
As a person who avidly does lots of psychedelics, that's kind of my wheelhouse because things can get magnified into night like full blown. I'm manifesting nightmares through the fear based thoughts, and they're literally being created around me. And so, yeah, it's chill. It's chill these days.
Right on. Yeah, I guess like I'm thinking about it from like a mental or emotional point of view, but like the most obvious version of it is when you're in the gym, right? And you feel like your arms are going to fall off. They're not actually going to fall off. You're in the process of making them stronger, right? So I suppose when we learn to sit with uncomfortable feelings and thoughts, and we are in the process of becoming stronger. Uh, Gentlemen, I'd like to call it. Dad's not here, so we get to leave 5 minutes early. Thank you for an outstanding conversation. Alex, again, my challenge to you is to like get back on that mountain biking in the mountains of Arkansas and just like take off your helmet and just like kind of like shake off all that sweat like a big golden retriever all over your family. All right, while they're eating their TV dinners. Okay.
Okay. Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
y'all. Catch you Monday
Thank
or
you,
Friday.
Sanjay. Thank you,
Have a good
Arjuna.
one.
Love you.
Have a great week. Stay on your fitness
Love you guys.
goals. Let's be slim and trim on Friday.